Welcome back, everyone. The last time we spoke, we talked about psychosocial hazards, responsibilities, etc. I want to focus on a couple of psychosocial hazards today, if I can, and over the next couple of weeks. Before we get into the psychosocial hazards, I just want to read you a quote from Michael Toomer's book from 2020. If all that work did for us was allowing us to return home with the same level of mental health, it has failed miserably. For many, work, whether paid or unpaid, is part of our mental health fulfillment. That's a really interesting quote, and I think it's something that we need to think about around psychosocial hazards and why it's important that we treat psychosocial hazards within the workplace to ensure that we have safe workplaces for people. So, 2022, Safe Work Australia identified 14 psychosocial hazards, and they're the core psychosocial hazards that we're going to focus on over the next couple of weeks. We've got excessive work demands, low control, poor support for the job, lack of role clarity, poorly managed change, poorly managed relationships, low levels of recognition and reward, organisational injustice, traumatic events or material, remote and isolated work, poor physical working environments, violence and aggression in the workplace, bullying in the workplace, and harassment. And that also includes sexual harassment. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the first few today. And we're going to have a look at, firstly, excessive work demands. And this has an emotional, mental, and physical impact on people. So people are given more work to do, more and more work to do because of the organisational demands in the business. Their workloads basically become unmanageable. So they can't meet their goals. They're doing extra hours after work. They're doing work on the weekends. And role overload can really mess with a person's self-esteem because it becomes quite anxiety and stressful for the worker when they're trying to meet these goals and they can't. The pressures increase because there's shorter time frames. The work itself may be monotonous and repetitive. There could also be excessive conditions such as heat and high noise, smell, really bad lighting, or the air conditioning or ventilation is inadequate. Poor workplace design plays a big part in role overload as well. This is a major area that businesses need to look at. Sometimes, especially within open plan offices, we can't reach our goals because there's so many distractions. People are actually talking to you, they want to have a chat. Some people are even put next to noisy environments such as photocopiers, and that can be a real problem as well. People come to the photocopier, have a chat. So this individual is not reaching their goals during the day. So that's excessive work demands. Number two, we could look at low control of the workplace. So the person has very little control of their job. They've got hardly anything that they can say that will make an influence on their job at all. They're not involved in the decision-making process and how the job is conducted. There's strict and inflexible work schedules. There's probably also an inability to access necessary tools or information or resources in general. And if you're working for a client as a contractor, they're not listening. They can actually be quite aggressive or rude, and there's no way you have any recourse whatsoever. So you have no control over this situation, this job. Low control is one of the very damaging psychosocial hazards for individuals because, again, it affects self-esteem, it increases anxiety, and it enables people, it disables people in regards to they can't have any say within how the work is actually processed. Number three, we're looking at poor support. And that's poor support for the individual and the actual job itself. So the individual who's doing the task actually is unsupported by not only their supervisor or manager, but also the peers or co-workers within that business. They might have poorly communicated work priorities, and they're placed under undue stress because of these work priorities and not knowing these work priorities. So, for example, they could have their job and all of a sudden be told, well, that's not exactly the priority. You need to be able to get this done. This is our priority. They're not fully competent. I've seen a bit of this. People are hired to do a job and they're actually not fully competent. And what we're talking about there is that the PCBU or the company, they haven't taken their time to actually train the individual fully in what's required for them. It must be completed with inadequate equipment or inadequate resources, inadequate information, not the right tools. There might be poor planning or inadequate execution of a work plan, or the work plan might even be very hard to understand. So the individual actually is behind the eight ball from the start because they can't put in context what the work plan is about. And if they don't have the support from their supervisors or co-workers, well, they're not going to help them understand the context of the work. During inductions, we discuss medical processes for people, but I want you to think about also with all of these psychosocial hazards, do we actually discuss the mental health process within your business? Do they actually know who they can go and talk to, who they can go and have a chat to and report these things? So that's just three that we've gone through today. That's excessive work demands, low control, and poor support. And what we're going to do is we'll go through over the next couple of weeks the remainder of the 14. And then we're going to talk after that about some controls that you can put in place for these psychosocial hazards. So, look, remember, if you've got any questions at all or any comments, please put them in the comments section and I will attempt to answer them as quickly as I can on our next video. Well, it's been great bringing this to you, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.